Hello students, so today we will be studying a new chapter in science, and the name of the chapter is Separation of Substance. So substance, so everything which we see around us in nature, usually they exist in many forms. Those are your substance. For example, air, water and soil, those are all your substances. Now those substances are either present in two forms, that is either they are in pure form or in mixture form. Rainwater, which is also known as the purest form of water. The reason is why it is pure means it does not have any other substance mixed with it. That means it is only made out of pure water. So that's why rainwater is known as the purest form of water. And mixture, suppose if you mix the water with some substance like sugar and salt, that water will no more be pure, but that will be known as a mixture. Now out here you can see separation of substance. So why do we need to separate substance? There are many reasons. We will discuss with examples. Suppose everyone takes milk at home, and usually the milk has many parts in it. Like your milk is rich in calcium, which is good for your health, but your milk also contain some of the portion like your fats and creams, which we eat. If we try to eat very much of those part, like the cream and fats, it will not be good for our health. So usually we try to separate those cream and fatty portions of the milk, and we just try to eat the pure milk, which is good for health. So that process is known as that process can be called as separating of milk or separating of fats from the milk. Same way, we also have some other reasons, like if you're cooking, if you're making tea, and you need to separate those tea leaves from the while making tea. So for that we use some kind of instrument which we usually call chalni. So with the help of chalni we separate all the tea leaves and all. So this is known as separation. So these are the reasons why do we need separation. Now in order to do that, there should be some process. So some of the process are discussed out here. So first one is methods of separation. So in methods of separation, first one usually we see is hand picking. So hand picking, as you can see in the picture, a lady is trying to separate some grains with the help of her hands. So in hand picking we usually use hands, and it is usually used for separating some cereals and pulses, just like your normal dals and all, your grams and all, chanas and all. In this sometimes you usually have dirts like or small pieces of stones and all, or some haystacks and all. We have those substance on those cereals and all. So that in that time we need to first clean the cereals. So usually it is done by hand picking process out here. In some cases even rice, like in olden times, like a few years back, they used to do the hand picking even for rice, but nowadays we don't see this method. Next one is magnetic separation. Now in magnetic separation, what usually happens, it is usually seen in junkyards and all, where all kind of scraps are present out there. So in some junkyards they might have some valuable metal substance which might be very useful. So that time, as you can see in the diagram, a big crane is out there which has a magnet attached to it. So it is used to take all the substance which from the junkyard which are metals, so that it can be recycled again to make other substance. Next one is threshing. So threshing, usually it can be used, this technique is used in agriculture and all. So as you can see out here, the crop stack, so they are dried up in the sun for some time. So after they are dried up, what people do, threshing can be done in two ways. One by manually with the help of your hands. So once those crops are dried, they are beaten up in this manner, with the help of which they are able to separate the grains. Another one, it is done with the help of machine, as you can see in the diagram. Next one is winnowing. So it's somewhat same like threshing, but the only difference here is the technique. So in winnowing, a person is standing out there and from some height he is throwing the grains to the floor. So with the help of this technique, all the grains will be separated from the hay. As you can see, the person is holding it in his hand. So all the grains will be separated and those grains will be on floor. But there might be some small hay part or dirt which are much lighter than the grains. So while doing so, those are being blown away by the air. Next one is your sieving. So it's a very common technique which we also see in our homes when our parents are cooking chapatis and all. So usually it is done to separate if any dirt or any substance are present in the flour. So usually it is done to separate. So it is done to separate those substance from the flour. So while baking the cake and all, if something enters into the flour, and what will you do? Like, you cannot throw away all the flours. So usually with the help of this technique, we again separate those substance from the flour. Now the next technique which we are going to study is sedimentation, decantation and filtration. Now these are also some of the processes with the help of which separation is done, but the only difference out here is this kind of separation is for solid and liquid. The separation which we have studied earlier, those are just for solid, but there might be some cases where a solid and a liquid is mixed and you have to separate either of them. So it cannot be done by those processes, but we need different process like this one: sedimentation, decantation and filtration. So sedimentation is a very important process. So as you can see it in the diagram out here, or you can also perform this experiment at home. So in the first tube, it has some muddy water. So if we keep the muddy water for some time, let's say 1 hour or maybe 2 hours, what will happen? All the muds and dirt will be deposited at the bottom of the glass and all the clean water will be at the top. This process is known as sedimentation. So that's how you see liquid and liquid is being separated from the solid. So once we take this clean water out, we try to separate them from the dirt by putting in the clean water into another container. This process is known as a decantation. So usually decantation is done by this process. As you can see a rod out there, with the help of those rod, all the clean water will be entering another tube. Now next technique is your filtration. Filtration is a very important technique as well. So like in filtration, we use some substance which filters those dirt. So as you can see in the diagram out here, a filter paper is being folded to a cone in 4 different steps. So once you put the cone out there in a funnel and you put a dirty water from a top, what will happen? Those funnel, in the funnel you have the filter paper which will take away all the dirt. It will absorb all the dirt in paper and it will filter the clean water in the below. As you can see in the glass at the bottom, all the clean water are coming through that. So it's kind of filtering the dirty water into clean water. So this process is known as filtration. Now some important topics: evaporation and condensation. So evaporation is a process with the help of which your liquid is being converted to gas form. So it can also be used for the process of separation. Suppose you have salty water. Usually this kind of technique is being used to get the salt which we eat, the crystal salt. So usually from the ocean, some salty waters are brought, and with the process of evaporation, all the salty water is being evaporated. After all the waters are evaporated, the only thing which is left behind is the crystals of salt, and that's how we get salt. Condensation is opposite of evaporation. That means condensation is a process by which gas is being converted to liquid, and it can also be used as separating method. Now next topic is solution and solubility. Solution means, if we I'll give you an example. If you mix salt and water, the substance which is formed is salty water, and that's your solution. Now the salt out there is your solute, and the water out there is your solvent. So whenever a solute and a solvent it mix together, solution is formed. And solubility is the ability of water to dissolve the solute. That means ability of water to dissolve any substance. It can be salt, sugar, etc. So the unit it is expressed is in gram per 100 milliliter. Now we need to see what are the factors affecting the solubilities. So first factor is stirring. So if you put a salt into the water, it will take a very long time for salt to be dissolved in water. But if you stir it with a spoon, it will take much less time for those salt to dissolve in water. Next one is solute in powder form. So if those salts are in crystal form, it will take some time to dissolve. But if you crush those crystals and make them in powdery form, it will dissolve much faster. Next one is temperature. Suppose you are dissolving salt in normal water, it will take time. But if the water is hot, it will take very less time. And now the process crystallization. So like I had discussed already, crystallization is a process with the help of which we obtain the crystal salts by the process of evaporation, and that's how you get the salts which we eat. That's how we get by the process of crystallization. So with this we end the chapter, and I want my students to turn to page 52. Do select the correct option. Then page 53, they can do difference between the following, and question number 4, answer the following. They can do this as their assignment, and they can send the pictures in their group, and their name and subject should be mentioned. Thank you.